Right, guys. So, in terms, I start recording and I start giggling like the amateur lecturer that I am. If we look at the organization and understanding it as a whole, I think one of the things we need to remember is that in order to make sense of the world, we use these best practice. They talk about mental models and what mental models do, it allows us to make sense of complex situations, of complex systems. It allows us to essentially have some sort of framework within which to interpret what happens in organizations. So in terms of these models, and these are often in the form of best practices, these are often in the form of things that consultants will arrive and try and sell organizations, and some of them are really very good, some of them are less good. But what they allow us to do is to filter the nonsense from the important stuff. I think when you in an environment where you're bombarded with information all the time, where things change on a moment to moment basis, the truth is that there is so much nonsense that comes through that you need some way of filtering what is important and what is unimportant, and what is superfluous and what is at the core of the problem. So these frameworks allow us to filter the rubbish that comes through and decide what is important and what is not important. And then a silly example of this is what I do with textbooks. So when I create a set of slides or when I summarize textbooks, my job is to get rid of the gumph, is to get rid of the nonsense and focus on what is important. And I honestly believe that often with my slides, you can simply just use my slides and pass every exam and every assessment. And it just comes from time where you realize what is nonsense and what is extra and what is superfluous in terms of what is important in terms of the detail required. The second one, it allows us to actually identify what the problem is. And I spoke to the one class this morning. I'm not a big fan of the sort of platitudes and the catchphrases that go every problem is an opportunity. It doesn't work that way. What the truth is that often finding solutions to problems will create sets of opportunities. So turning every problem into an opportunity is absolute nonsense. It's taking those important problems that potentially could affect the continued existence of an organization and turning those into solutions that then become opportunities for business. And we've just seen so many new businesses spring up as a consequence of COVID, and the collab sessions here, Teams and Zoom, and those are just but some of them. But the truth is, if you think of why Zoom was created, it was the problem that you couldn't have face-to-face meetings anymore, but you had to remain connected with your staff. And there is a problem that was turned into an opportunity because of using the right technologies to find a solution. The truth is also knowing and finding a solution is important, but it is to give life to that specific solution. It is to execute. It's to take the idea behind Zoom and turn it into an actual platform. It is to take the idea behind the 60-minute delivery from Checkers and turn it into something that is workable. And I see that Pick and Pay are now doing deliveries. Woolworths are also doing deliveries. I know that Clicks and Discam and those are also doing deliveries. And the problem was that people weren't allowed to go out. People were scared to go out. And the solution obviously became that opportunity to create a new business within a business. I also see that Checkers, and I don't believe I could ever be that lazy, but who knows one day in the future, where you can have a personal shopper. So you can arrive, give a shopping list, and somebody will go do your shopping and bring it to your car. And I'm pretty sure there's some sort of online payment system. Who could see themselves do that? Arrive, hand a list over, and go sit back in your car and listen to music while your personal shopper for the hour goes and does your shopping. I'm not at that point of laziness yet, I think. But it also it has to reflect what is important from a business culture perspective, from our beliefs, our values, and also the fact that these organizational cultures often have a way of doing things. So when you bring in new details, when you use these mental models to make sense of nonsense that is going on in the world, you need to do it within the broad guidelines of what the organization sees as their own priorities, not just from a business perspective, but also from a culture perspective, from an ethics perspective. Yeah, and then it is about looking at interpreting the nonsense that comes to us and isolating those important issues, and then looking for cause and effect relationships. So we often look at, if I do this, what will be the impact in terms of this decision? And often we don't foresee the impact of decisions. We've seen how new technologies, although great on the surface of it, have not been the best because we've not always been able to foresee the future. We've not always been able to see the cause and effect relationships. Kolasang mentioned this morning, and I don't know if Kolasang is on the call, but the Tesla bot, there are some real issues in terms of the Tesla bot, and there's some real issues of concern around the Tesla bot. And as much as Elon Musk is against AI, he is still using AI from a Tesla bot perspective. Sorry, and while I'm talking, I'm just going to quickly search and share an article for you guys to look at. And it's incredibly well written. Let me just go Tesla bot, and it's because we can't always predict the cause and effect of things. And what these models do, they allow us to see cause and effect. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe that we are going to be taken over by machines. You'll see in this article they refer to iRobot and obviously Terminator and things like that. Have a glance at that article. It's the problem that we cannot always predict, and that's what these mental models are supposed to do. Very well written article, very, very impressive article. Please have a glance at that when you have a moment. The truth, though, is whatever your mental model is, you will always have limitations. The world is so complex, and sometimes the connects are so difficult to spot between elements within the organization and elements within the environment that you are likely to miss certain things. Again, and I've used this example before of where in November 2019, there were news articles, news reports on CNN about this virus that is in Wuhan, that is killing people and potentially is dangerous. I predicted in 2019, November 2019, that something big was going to hit the world. Now, certainly, I consider myself of below average intelligence, and I certainly think they're way brighter people than me. But if I could already in November 2019 see that something big is on its way, why would businesses and countries not have responded? To also just take 4 years earlier, when both Bill Gates as well as Barack Obama had warned about the potential of a pandemic that could have devastating impact on the world. And we've seen the devastation caused by COVID. The good thing in terms of the way that we've put together these vaccines, the mRNA technologies, is you can rewrite the DNA within those vaccines to deal with the issues that could come from mutations within a virus. And remember, the job of a virus is to mutate. But to come back to limitations, in 2019, November, we knew something big was going to hit the world. Where were the mental models for countries to use to try and deal with this better? Why was New Zealand able to deal with it a lot better than the rest of the world? And I know that there are obvious answers for that. Why was Australia able to deal with it better than the rest of the world? Because their mental models worked. In South Africa, we waited for the tsunami to hit us, and I think everyone remembered last year and the lockdown and the disasters around the lockdown. The good thing about 2020 is if you could survive 2020, you can survive anything. And I know that sounds like a load of nonsense and again, a bit of a cliche. But if you could survive 2020, my goodness me, you can survive anything. So I think we learn from the past and we become resilient. I think that to me is the only good thing that came out of 2020, to be honest with you. So in terms of the organization as a whole, what it is really this abstract representation of the business. It is a representation that indicates connects, that indicates links, that indicates the impact of decisions, that look at the knock-on effect of decisions, that see changes that happen in one area and how those changes have to be accommodated in other areas. So often from a mental model perspective, and this is from first year business management. I don't know if I don't think I was your first year business management lecturer, where we have the inputs, those transformation processes, and then some sort of products and services, doing it all in order to create stakeholder wealth, the new definition of what strategic success is. All of this within the broader guidance of the vision. So we talk about how in an organization, the first thing we do is we create the vision for the future. And the moment an organization doesn't have a vision, you're in serious, serious trouble. I don't know, and I've got to be very careful because it's something that I might have missed, but I don't know South Africa Incorporated, what Cyril Ramaphosa's vision for South Africa is. And again, I've said this a couple of times, a big fan, but I can't think of what his vision was. I remember Mbeki's vision. I definitely remember Mandela's vision. Zuma, I don't know whether vision is in fact a term that that individual could in fact spell. In terms of the third one, or the fourth one there, every organization has its own unique abstract, and each organization will have its own representation for what works for it. So when we think of how Google would be different to any government department, what makes Google tick, how the connects happen, how they consider the impact of changes and the knock-on effect of changes would be very different to the way that Apple does things. And it's simply because of the uniqueness of their cultures, the uniqueness of their visions, and the uniqueness of their approaches. And then it's about lateral thinking, and it is thinking beyond what the obvious is. And when we think of strategy and strategy implementation, we are constantly looking at how a change in one area would have an impact in other areas. If you want to have a look at this, let me just share this. Let's share an article. Hopefully it's one that works. I don't want to share Wikipedia. It's sorry, and I'll share this with you now. Hold on. It's this idea of the butterfly effect, you know, and when you look at the butterfly effect, is where essentially how the minutest of occurrences could have significant knock-on effects. Please have a read of the butterfly effect. I've not read this one, this article. I literally just did a search, but it is understanding how one single event could have a significant knock-on effect. And when you think of COVID and the size of what a COVID virus is, this microscopic thing, bringing the world to its knees. I mean, think of that, how something the size that you cannot see, at a microscopic level, you can maybe see it and you can see what potentially it looks like, had the ability of bringing the world to a standstill. That's the reality of the butterfly effect. It is how one event could have a significant a significant knock-on effect in terms of the world. Right. So in terms of the second one that we have to look at, the idea of leading ethically, and making sure that from a business perspective we do the right thing. That I think the reality is, and I think I can't remember who answered this. It's easier to be unethical because being ethical means that you do the right thing. It costs more money. It's easier to make money when you are being driven by the wrong things, where the focus is um, about bottom line and not caring about the environment, not caring about sustainability. And again, coming back to Elon Musk's Tesla bot, it's that kind of thing. I mean, is it the right thing to do? Is it risky? Are there dangers associated with that? And I'm not going to do a whole conspiracy thing. I'd rather let you read that article yourself. So the kinds of things we need in order to lead ethically would always be those components that relate to emotional intelligence. And in terms of the kinds of emotional intelligence things, and we've done lectures on this before, when we look at ourselves and our own competencies, it is our own self-awareness. And it is the ability to read and understand your emotions, to know where you are at in terms of your mind, in terms of your mental state, in terms of where you find yourself in the world. I don't know if anyone's ever had this, and I'm sure all of you have had it, where you have a sense that something is wrong, but you don't know what is wrong. There's this underlying tension that something is wrong. Something in my mind is bothering me, but I can't put my finger on it. And that's that kind of self-awareness that we require. Has that, I mean, more than Tam, has anyone else had that kind of sensation that I know something is wrong, but I cannot tell you what is wrong? And the worst thing is, you as much as you dig above the surface and you get into the nitty gritties of it, and it lives within you. Yeah, Jen, I mean, yeah, when you've forgotten something, yeah, absolutely. And you know that there's something wrong. Now, if you ever get a chance, old cartoons, take that a bit further, Boya. Tim, just write a bit more on old cartoons. I want to show you guys this as well, and I'm sure some of you would have seen this. And this, mind you, this is what I like about teaching online, because I can do stuff like this, and you know, and I would love to tell you that this is all planned, and beforehand I wrote down this as what I was going to say, but that would be the biggest lie in the world. Um, there's something called the Johari window. I don't know if anyone has seen stuff on the Johari window. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I see exactly, boy. You can't put a finger on it. Please just open that one. Yeah, so the Johari window says that every person has these different windows, and they panes within a window, and they talk about the kinds of things. Is it communications first year? Okay, I'm glad you guys did it, because this is a heck of an important theory. But it's the stuff that's known to yourself and known to others, not known to yourself but known to others, and also then not known to yourself nor known to others. And often when we have that kind of can't put our finger on it, it's often the stuff that floats around in the unknown, where you know that you should be upset or be concerned about something, but you can't remember what you should be concerned about. And I love this model, because so many people fall into some of those categories. As the second one, it's important to be aware of your emotions, but you've got to control those emotions. You have to control those emotions. It's well and good to know that you're in a bad mood and that you should take a moment to step away and count to 10. It's a different thing to be able to do that and then step away and count to 10. What people normally do is foul mood, let me go pick a fight. Now, I'm not a fighter, fortunately, but the reality is there are people who know that they're in a bad mood and don't have self-regulation. And again, all of these components work together. Who wants to admit to doing that, where they know they're in a bad mood and then they go look somewhere to pick a fight, to have somebody allow them to get the bad mood out? Somebody has to be honest. Okay, let me ask it differently. Who are the people that know that when they're in a bad mood, they've got to count to 10, calm down, get their emotions regulated, and then act? Mara, yeah. So Jen, you're able to do that. You're able to go and have deep breaths, and we often talk about people who have this awareness and no self-regulation as flying off the handle, where the temper is immediate. Anyone on the call have a short temper? Be honest. I'm not going to pick a fight. Anyone have a short temper? Jen. Yeah, I must admit that as I've aged, I've mellowed, and I always talk about my life in different stages. But I used to honestly be an aggressive idiot, and now because of alcohol and other things, I'm a nice person. But the reality is, it's that lack of self-regulation that causes that bad temper sometimes, guys. And then just motivation. I'm quite a strange creature. I'm actually feeling quite unwell at the moment, and I went to lie down for 40 minutes because I really didn't think I could face you guys. But my motivation is simple. You know, I could switch off between classes, but when I walk into a class, I get energized, I get going, I move on. And it really is about having a passion for what you do, is having the energy. It's about trying to improve, and the one that I've spoken about a gazillion times, that you work for pleasure and money is a consequence of doing something you love, not the reason for doing it. And I still believe that. For me, money is, I don't work for money, I work for pleasure, and the money that I get is a consequence of working for pleasure. Who has high levels of passion and energy? Who will be the kind of individual that an organization would want because they're always energized and they've always got levels of motivation? Who has high levels of motivation for everything they attempt? I mean, I'm such a nerd sometimes that I set assignments for my honors, and then I think to myself, actually, I would love to go and do this assignment myself, which is again an indication of what a nerd I am. While I'm doing this, I'm going to share something with you guys that I want you to watch later. Um, it's this kind of person that you want in your organization. Hold on a second. I'm just going to share this now. Yeah, so it is. That's exactly it. And Tim, you're right, and Tam, and you guys are right. You do not want to work in a job for money, because the moment you work in a job, sorry, that's just the one I want to share with you. Um, have a glance at this, and when I think of motivation and passion and energy, please copy that and watch it afterwards. Okay. It's a Heineken advert for a job search, and some of you might have seen it. I think it was screened at some sort of awards thing and at some major sporting event. Please have a look at that. But it's about that. Sorry, coughing fit, guys. um, And then it's about relationships. It's empathy. It's understanding people's points of view. It's understanding the hardships that people have gone through. It's appreciating other people's lives. It's the opposite of being self-centered. And then social skills, knowing how to motivate, interact, engage, network with people, being comfortable around others, good at communication. And the focus very often about being able to fit into any situation. Who are the introverts on the call? Quite introverted, struggle a little bit in social situations. Nosipo, introvert, okay. But the rule about introverts, it doesn't mean that they're unfriendly. I think introverts, when they get to their people, and I'm going to use the term their people, they become extroverted. So when you're around the right people, you become extroverted. You 96% extrovert. Yeah, I think I'm quite extroverted. I'm quite comfortable in most situations. Yeah, I always think of myself as somebody that fits in everywhere. But I think I also am a lot more extroverted when I'm around my people. And I'm not going to define what my people means, but everyone has their people. And often introverts are extroverts around their people. Amara, introverted. No, I think, Amara, you are quite introverted. I think you are quite introverted. But I could imagine around friends in the right circumstances, you are quite comfortable. You can interact. You can be the life of the party. I also think, Amara, one of the challenges for you is that you haven't discovered alcohol yet. um Cure for introversion. Sorry, I'm kidding, don't report me, anyone. The most unprofessional lecturer ever. Okay, guys, and then we look at the kinds of things from a leadership perspective. You've seen all of these, okay, and it's not the best slides, and I don't know what made me put this as a background. I don't know what it looks like your side, but we talk about these different leadership styles. We've spoken about transformational leadership, where it's about bringing change to organizations. You'll see that the key elements in terms of transformational leadership there is idealized influence. We've discussed this before, where you behave in a way that people actually admire you. I've also told you before that this is based around Mandela and the bringing democracy to South Africa. Inspirational motivation. I mean, this is a guy that essentially spent 27 years in prison and came and forgave everyone. We also talk about individualized consideration. I would have spoken to you about needing to watch Invictus. And Invictus, there's this wonderful scene where Mandela goes to this community hall to meet with dignitaries. He meets all the dignitaries, and he then walks to the back, and someone says to him, "You've met everyone," and he said, "I haven't." And he walked to the back to meet the cleaners and greet them individually. And I'm sure that you've heard these stories from me before. And intellectual stimulation, getting people to think differently about the world. Transactional leadership, you guys will also remember, it's the way your parents got you to do things. If you want to go out tonight, you have to clean your room. So contingent reward is where a certain reward depends on certain behaviors. So you say to them, you behave, employees behave in this. Yeah, boy. You and I, obviously, me being 3 times your age, it was do it or die, but that's but do it or else works as well. So in terms of contingent reward, if you behave in this particular way, these are the rewards that follow. We also talk management by exception, where essentially you let people do their thing. but you sort of wait for them to do something wrong, and then management by exception, active, where you actively look to find ways of rewarding people. So in terms of leading ethically, and you can see the transactional, transformational stuff, we've done these theories a number of times. Do I have to go through these again, guys? So transactional leadership, an exchange of, if you behave, these are the rewards. In Tim's case, if you behave, these are the punishments you avoid, including being clocked against the head. Yeah, no, I think they are pretty good. And then transformational leadership. Guys, and then just, we know from transformational leadership, and we can talk about passive, where you wait for people to make a mistake. So while people are working and doing what they're doing, you leave them, but when they make a mistake, you jump on them. And yeah, management by exception, where you constantly go and look for people to make mistakes. It's the idea of catching people doing the wrong thing, and then laissez-faire, letting people just get on with it. And then transformational leadership, I've discussed this, idealized influence. Remember, please watch the movie Invictus and watch Morgan Freeman, first of all, as Nelson Mandela, but also based in that movie, you can see each of these behaviors, and I've explained each of those. Right, and then have a glance at those pages. I think, yeah, unfortunately, if somebody could take a pic of those and just shove them on the group, and when I say somebody, I mean Jen, so that everyone has access to those pages. Okay, guys, and then just when we think of organizational culture, I think when we think of strategic leadership, you have to understand not just the culture of the organization, you have to understand the culture of those people that you lead. And we talk about the fact that different cultures respond differently. One of the biggest challenges for us is that so many of the theories we use in management come from America, come from Europe, and we have these Western American traditions around theories. And one of the things that we need to start doing is questioning whether these are still appropriate. We need to question whether Maslow is still worth teaching, because we just blindly teach Maslow all the time. Also understanding the national cultural system in South Africa, we talk about Ubuntu, and essentially you can only be a human being through other people. I'm not going to try and say it in Zulu because I know that I'm going to mess it up, but it really is that we talk about this inclusive leadership, and it's about servant leadership, and it's about allowing other people to shine, and it's not about your own achievements, it's about watching other people achieve because of your influence. Then we need to look at that vision. And I said already that everything starts and finishes with a vision. So the job of a strategic leader is always going to be to set up the vision for the future, is to create that vision. And you'll remember from this morning's lecture where I spoke about the Nokia vision in the mid-2000s of life goes mobile. So whenever I think of a powerful vision, that's what a powerful vision is. In terms of what the vision does, it gives us an overall target to work towards. So if your vision is life goes mobile, every bit of work that you do on a daily basis should be about making life go mobile, should be about creating code that allows people to use their phone for everything. Every time a salesperson sees a client, he should sell the idea of life going mobile. And then it steers the organization. So we give this target, and then the organization hopefully moves in the direction of that target. The other thing that a vision has to do, it has to inspire people to aspire to be great. And it's yeah, one of the few things that I've ever created. But a great vision inspires people to aspire to be fantastic. It's energizing, it's motivation giving. And then in terms of what a good vision is, always reflects the core ideology of the organization. If you think of life going mobile, what did Nokia stand for at that point in time? And it tells us about this new future. So when you read that article that I shared on Tesla bot, have a glance at Elon Musk and the way he sees the future. It is really, really a good article that I actually shared there. So please, please have a glance at that. In terms of building a vision, so it starts off with this innovative, energetic image. We will never have a dull and dreary, non-exciting vision. We want something that sparks. We want something that energizes, activates people into action. It has to be desirable. And when we talk about desirability, what the vision has to do, it should allow us to create a set of values that allows the organization to be ethical, that allows the organization to be good, and that allows the organization to essentially be have good governance within its operations. It must also allow people to take action. So again, as my example, as life goes mobile, if you're a coder, if you're a programmer, if you write code within Nokia and your job is to make life go mobile, you know that every time you write a bit of code, that the focus of that code should be for people to be able to use their phone for everything. And it must be clear. We must be able to articulate it. People must be able to see in there what we actually mean about the future. There's nothing more clear for me than saying your vision is life goes mobile. And I've struggled to find a better vision than that. For me, I still think it's one of the best examples of what a vision should do. Right, guys.